Yuji Itadori unlocked Benevolent Shrine, and with such an insane reveal, it's the best time to explain and rank all 14 to see how they perform against each other. Within that enclosed domain space, the caster has a considerable advantage over their opponent because their base stats and strength are increased. But it's not only that, their curse technique gets more powerful than before. In fact, the most broken effect and why sorcerers use a domain in the first place is that each attack within the barrier has a sure hit guarantee, meaning it will always impact the opponent and cause massive damage. As a result, each domain expansion strength and ability depends on the sorcerer using it, from their level of curse energy reserves to other variables, such as if they have a strong self-belief. After all, a domain is a reflection of the soul, a mental landscape that embodies the mind of an individual, which they are born with. In chapter 164, we learned domains were not fatal in the past and were common because all it did was make your opponent follow a rule, but it evolved with sorcery becoming so powerful, which made it a rare feat within sorcery having a sure killer attack within a barrier. Hence why most domains are constructed like a sphere to anyone looking on the outside, and this is to make sure that the sorcerers trapped inside can't escape. This is because it's easier for someone to cast their technique in a confined area. So with the history out of the way, it's time to rank all of the domain expansions. But with the manga completing, everyone feels depressed. Well, I'm here to save you, because in Jujutsu Kaisen's festival, they announced its first official licensed mobile game, Jujutsu Kaisen Phantom Parade. You can finally become a sorcerer and use curse techniques to exercise curses, retelling the story with all new voice acting, whilst experiencing the perspectives of the different characters. Like, we always take the piss out of Megami, but now we can play out the story for ourselves. Like, come on, we read the manga, we watched the anime, and we all say we want to see more of such and such characters. You will relive the peak moments of the anime like the Goodwill arc and participate in intense battles. In Japan, this game was a huge hit, and with its success, they are having their worldwide launch at the end of the year, and pre-registration is now open, offering exclusive rewards for those that register early. So with the Phantom Parade Team Assemble event beginning, you guys win up to 1100 cubes by forming your own team with friends to participate. So don't miss out, you silly willy. Click the link in the comment section and description below. Our MC, Yuji Itadori's domain is the most unique of all. To begin with, we know Yuji's potential is so insane that it can be compared to Sukuna himself, since he has immersed in Sukuna's curse energy for so long, and his father turned out to have the soul of Sukuna's twin. Plus, the dude lived inside his body for a few months. Yuji is essentially a special grade with the experience akin to the king, even killing the dude eventually. We see this when he demonstrated a modern and refined version of Sukuna's curse technique, using it as a scissor instead of chaotic slashes Sukuna dishes out. This is because curse techniques depend on a sorcerer's interpretation of them. Hence, Yuji's Benevolent Shrine is basically soul dismantle being struck at the person non-stop, inflicting not only physical damage, but soul damage. This is very overpowered because the soul cannot be repaired via reverse curse technique. The only way you can is if you understand the contours and shape of the soul, which by the end of JJK's manga, only Mahoto, Sukuna, and Yuji could. Even so, the king admitted when Maki slashed his heart with the soul katana affecting his own, it was taking much longer for it to heal with reverse curse technique. Therefore, he had to resort to pumping the heart manually. Yuji's output without even the domain expansion powering it up is exceptional because multiple dismantles made Sukuna vomit his fingers and cause severe damage, where he knew if he tanked a few more from Yuji, he was guaranteed to die. No other person during the raid boss fight, except for Gojo, has made Sukuna even admit a slight chance that they could kill him. Sukuna has the strongest output and durability in the entire verse, so that tells us Yuji's regular dismantle would annihilate 99% of other characters, since they wouldn't know what to do.
I'm confused right now, G.
Its function works just like Sukuna's, so even if the person activates simple domain, they would have to maintain it constantly whilst dealing with him, and the constant slashes that will be flying around. This makes it superior to others such as Naoya's domain, for example, that it must touch you to even make the sure hit effect begin in the first place. This was confirmed with Sukuna having to maintain Hollow Wicker Basket and keeping it reinforced at all times with his pair of hands. However, even so, Yuji broke it apart, making it GG for pretty much anyone facing him. Sukuna even dared to enter a domain battle against Yuji to cancel out and counter his sure hit effect, which indicates that Yuji's output is pretty high. This is confirmed as Sukuna falsely believed Yuji should have been out of curse energy during their final clash, yet he still had more than enough gas in him to input everything into a final black flash. Also, in chapter 268, we see that Yuji's barrier is huge, equivalent to skyscrapers. However, the Benevolent Shrine has another effect. Given that Yuji's innate ability is to resonate the soul of a person, his domain takes shape around this premise. What gives life value is the experiences, aka memories. This is what evolves the soul throughout its journey living in the body. However, as a domain is a representation of the person that casted it, it's depicted with memories that made Yuji who he truly is. In his domain, Yuji has full access to every soul individually, as shown where even though Sukuna had activated Hollow Wicker Basket, Yuji was still able to converse with Megami and the king. He even accessed Megami's memories to get a better feel of his emotions, which all showcases his ability to distinguish the contour of the soul even greater in his domain. Sukuna stated he experienced something similar, where in a rare occasion, two sorcerers are connected in the heat of a battle, but Yuji, he's making this occur on purpose to communicate like the Buddhist deity representing mercy, as any opponent he would face from then on can be saved. Overall, we can easily say Yuji's domain is S tier even in its infancy. Once he increases its output and gains cleave in his shrine technique, which is a different slashing ability that adjusts itself depending on the target's toughness and curse energy level to cut them down in one fell swoop. Even Sukuna's full maximum output of cleave damage the likes of Gojo. So Yuji's domain can potentially be better than Sukuna's Malevolent Shrine, as it also affects the soul and even contested to be the strongest in the entire series, just like a certain someone. Because now we need to talk about him. Imagine that each and every piece of information that exists in the universe floods into your brain in a single second or even less. Now imagine the information being infinity itself. That is guaranteed to fry your brain. Well, that's basically what Satoru freaking Gojo's domain does, and we just have to put it in S tier for power. Now let me explain why. When Gojo used Unlimited Void on Jogo, he was completely overwhelmed. He couldn't process anything at first, so he felt like there was nothing around him. But he quickly realized that his brain was trying to process boundless information, rendering him incapable of doing anything except being paralyzed. Gojo clarified that Jogo, being inside Limitless, is forced to take actions like perception and communication infinitely. This means that though he can see everything, he will never reach any information at all. The closer his mind gets to perceiving it, the further it will be. This is the same way on how Gojo's infinity works. In turn, Unlimited Void basically destroys the brain. So no wonder that this domain is extremely lethal, because even 0.2 seconds worth of exposure sent people in Shibuya into rehabilitation for 2 months. In fact, it's so overpowered that Sukuna, the king of curses himself, admitted that it was a pain in the ass and he had to get rid of Gojo's most powerful weapon just to have the conditions to win the battle. The refinement and power output of it also matches the king of curses, meaning that it will win in a domain battle against 99.9% of other sorcerers that try to challenge him. Now, despite incurring brain damage, Sukuna knew the only way to counter Gojo's domain was to fight it with his own. Even in this, they both hit a stalemate of sorts. Thus, Sukuna even had to use Yuji's memories, Mahoraga, and Megami as a shield to overcome this huge barrier completely. What also makes Gojo's domain the strongest of Jujutsu Kaisen is whose hands it is in. With 6 eyes, Gojo has molecular level of understanding of curse energy. He is a master of strategy and a literal freak when it comes to learning as well as adapting. In the first domain clash, a limited void was wrecked because of Sukuna's open domain ability to slash from the outside. But Gojo did not stop there. Within a single fight, he changed the conditions of his domain multiple times, which was said to be impossible, also that Gojo could counter Malevolent Shrine. For example, his genius was able to switch the internal and external conditions of a limited void, so that Sukuna's shrine wouldn't be able to break so easily from the outside. He later even demonstrated his ability to shrink the outer barrier of his domain to the size of a basketball, which increased its density and toughness. It is the essential counter to open domains. But because of this, Sukuna had to counter using his own binding vows and change of conditions. However, in the end, Gojo's domain is what dominated, and Sukuna managed to survive by directing the majority of damage to Megami's soul. But without realizing it, Sukuna's body still took some of the burden to the point of incapacitating any further use of Malevolent Shrine. Hence why Gojo's domain is the unrivaled best in the entire series. With Yuji being S-tier, we cannot miss out on another star student of Gojo. Yuta's domain is on another level. Authentic mutual love relies on Yuta's massive arsenal of copied curse techniques and creates a field of katana. Yuta can select one of his copied powers to be imbued into the domain's barrier as its guaranteed hit effect and target one specific user, a feat that not even Gojo achieved, where Yuta earned the respect of Sukuna. Gojo and Mahoto didn't risk doing the same thing, as they believed that a 0.2 second domain was more plausible than a domain with a selective sure hit effect. But in chapter 251, Yuta chose Angel's nullification technique, and to nail down the effect, he decided to go with Jacob's ladder. This advanced usage of barriers allowed Yuji to fight alongside him without the sure hit affecting him. Essentially, if he wasn't fighting the king, who had an anatomy that was perfect for true jujutsu, 99.9% of other sorcerers would have no answer to this and would pretty much die. The copied curse techniques are randomly installed into the swords scattered throughout the domain, but only Yuta can activate the powers within the swords. The only drawback is that he is unaware of which curse technique is in a katana until he grabs it. But despite each one being destroyed after a single use, the number of swords is infinite. So Yuta can keep fighting with different powers, leaving his opponent bamboozled on what will occur next.
Wallahi, you're finished.
Yuta forced the king to cast and maintain Hollow Wicker Basket to fight the domain's sure hit effect constantly. After all, Jacob's ladder was an attack that ensured any curse would be extinguished without exception, including special grade curse objects such as Ryumen Sukuna and the prison realm. So essentially, Yuta made sure that two of Sukuna's arms and mouth were preoccupied, as Yuta can decide whatever technique would be your greatest disadvantage depending on who you are. Sukuna knew it was Jacob's ladder instead of something else, so he had no choice, otherwise he would have taken more risk. So let's say Yuta is facing Ryu. He can make sky manipulation the sure hit effect, which would render his granite blast useless. But there's more. Yuta can make the copied technique even more powerful than the original due to his high curse energy reserves and if he understands its function. For example, Curse Speech worked effectively against Sukuna, but when my man Unamaki did it, his whole throat was destroyed. Even his Jacob's Ladder was more powerful than Angel. And even though Sukuna has immense speed, battle IQ, and strength to deduce all functions and copy techniques, Chapter 250 claims he will still be caught off guard by one that he hasn't seen before, which is why Cleave lands. Chapter 263 seals the deal. The true power of copy is that no one thinks of the original user. They don't stop to think of the possibility of the original power appearing, thus giving Yuta two of the same cards in the sorcerer's hand. On top of that, Yuta's output in Domain is also reaching the ranks of strongest, but his experience in Barrier shows that he understood Gojo's memories. When taking over his sensei's body, Unlimited Void matched Sukuna, which cancelled each other's sure hit effects. He also replicated the basketball-sized domain to counter an open barrier, which showcases his talent. Therefore, authentic mutual love is easily an S-tier domain. Speaking of whom, we can't leave the honored one. The S-tier list cannot be complete without this dude. Sukuna's domain expansion is on another level, as the manga called it a divine technique. That's right, it is like an artist painting a masterpiece not on a canvas but on air. This is because Sukuna can open his domain without a barrier, which allows him to expand the guaranteed hit range to everyone in a radius of 200 meters. This unique feature established a binding vow to provide an escape route. Well, that's if you can dash away 200 meters in a second before you're sliced instantly. Because this domain includes Dismantle and Cleave, which adjust to the power level of the person, killing them instantly. Basically, the benefits of having this open domain is insane, especially for someone as strong as Sukuna. Unlike other domains, such as Unlimited Void that can be cancelled out if the outer shell is broken, Malevolent Shrine cannot be destroyed by the same condition. You know, considering there isn't a barrier to destroy in the first place. Hence, the only effective method to destroy Malevolent Shrine is to injure Sukuna to the extent that he can no longer maintain the domain. And good luck doing that, especially in his Heian form. Even in his Megami form, you're done for. Look what he did against Kashima, the strongest that killed farmers 400 years ago. No, only Gojo could have done that much damage to destroy it. Right? Now, on top of this, the shrine ruthlessly cuts through anything in its way, be it people or buildings, and reduce it to dust. These attacks persist as long as the domain is open. Moreover, Sukuna has the ability to select which attack to use based on the target, using Dismantle for inanimate objects and Cleave for entities with curse energy, making it the most effective way to cause ultimate destruction. This is why he referred to his domain as true Jujutsu. Sukuna's mastery of domain expansion rivals Satoru Gojo's Unlimited Void and can overpower every other domain in the series. In fact, Two-Finger Sukuna in Yuji's body effortlessly tore apart a special grade finger bearer immediately after activating Malevolent Shrine. During his battle with Mahoraga in Shibuya, Sukuna unleashed his domain to overcome the Shikigami's adaptation ability with the barrage of sheer speed slashing attacks that was directed over a narrowed radius of 140 meters. Now, within a few minutes, Sukuna was able to kill thousands of people and end the strongest Shikigami of the 10 Shadows that has never been tamed, showing how broken the domain is. But it's his clash with Gojo where Sukuna showed the true potential of his power. In their initial encounter, Malevolent Shrine's range extended beyond Unlimited Void's barrier. This allowed Sukuna to exploit the weakness in Gojo's outer shell, overwhelming and crushing his domain. Due to this huge advantage, nearly every modern day Jujutsu sorcerer and in the Heian era will lose in a domain clash. Gojo, unlike most sorcerers, managed to outlast lost until he was able to recast another domain. But when Gojo adapted by making his outer shell stronger, Sukuna responded in kind, showcasing his capacity to modify his own domain's conditions through a binding vow. For instance, he would give up the guaranteed sure hit effect within a limited void's area or narrow the range of his domain, similar to its use in Shibuya. This alteration was paired with increased power, enabling him to breach Gojo's reinforced outer shell and collapse unlimited void once more. During their third exchange, both Sukuna and Gojo adjusted their domain conditions. As a consequence, both domains collapsed simultaneously after 3 minutes. This outcome occurred because Malevolent Shrine destroyed Unlimited Void's barrier from the outside again. The same thing happened in their fourth domain clash, showcasing how close these two domains are in the ranking system that we are doing right now. In fact, the last and fifth exchange ended with Sukuna finally taking damage, but this wasn't due to the domain itself, but rather Sukuna's timing and speed of activation, due to him having to heal his body with reverse curse technique. In fact, despite losing his domain expansion ability at the end of this fight, Sukuna recovered it thanks to Black Flash. Mind you, this is after him being hit by Yuji's 7 Black Flashes in a row, yet Sukuna managed to activate an impromptu Malevolent Shrine. He altered the hand signs and utilized an undamaged part of his brain, unaffected by Unlimited Void, just to cast it. But that's not all. Sukuna even enhanced its power by incorporating uncertain conditions and improvised binding vows. So with ensuring its open barrier nature, he was able to target Maki as well, who lacks curse energy and will be able to escape from nearly every other domain in the series. But no, not Malevolent Shrine. However, due to the conditions, he could only sustain this high-level domain for 99 seconds before its collapse. Regardless, this is the only domain in the series that was activated 8 times in a single day. What makes things more broken is the follow-up to it, being the Divine Flames, which can only be followed after the use of Dismantle and Cleave. This makes sense considering Sukuna is a chef, and before he starts cooking, he needs to slice and dice his ingredients. But to mitigate Divine Flame's slow speed and narrow range, Sukuna entered into a binding vow that restricted him from using it when outnumbered, unless inside his domain. In return, when Malevolent Shrine is expanded and dismantled, and then Cleave is used, Divine Flame can finally open. It then imbues all the pulverized substances that was sliced up with explosive curse energy, effectively turning them into thermobaric explosives that scatter throughout his domain, which are then detonated when Divine Flame is shot out. This causes an instantaneous rise in temperature, shockwaves, decompression, and intense pressurization, which kills all living things within his domain no matter what. He contains the flames within his domain by altering the barriers, controlling access for everything other than living creatures. Basically, he creates a furnace that people can get in and out of, but again, you're gonna get cooked quicker than you can move. So all in all, we can say that Malevolent Shrine is certainly the most powerful domain in Jujutsu Kaisen, as most sorcerers didn't even dare to fight in before he lost it. This makes it a no-brainer, S tier. Now, out of all the disaster curses, Yuji's nemesis Mahoto is easily one of the most important and strongest. This is because Nanami claimed that a sorcerer cannot protect the soul, unlike the body, unless the person understands the contours of their own. They cannot circumvent Mahoto's control over it. As a result, so far in the entire manga, only Yuji and Sukuna can actively counter him. This means, with a single touch against 99.9% of sorcerers, Mahoto could kill you, and his domain expansion makes this even easier. This domain enhances Mahoto's technique by allowing him to transfigure the souls of his targets within his domain without needing physical contact. Mahoto first developed it when he was close to death during his battle with Nanami and Yuji. Like, remember that? Remember that scene? I'm just saying.
Fight back! Fight back!
So with this generational beating, he used death as inspiration and increased his power. Nanami described the experience of being inside his domain as feeling like being in the palm of Mahito's hand. He believed that along with Gojo's unlimited void, self-embodiment of perfection almost guarantees victory for the caster. Later in the story, he activated this expansion against Kokuichi, seemingly defeating him as the large mechanical puppet collapsed. However, Kokuichi used Megamaru's simple domain mode to negate the effects. But guess what? My man used his entire life's worth of curse energy. 17 years, 5 months, and 6 days. Generally, Mahito's output is not comparable to the likes of Gojo, Yuta, Kenjaku, Yuji, or Sukuna right now. Even Kenjaku's open barrier against special grades like Yuki instantly disintegrated her simple domain and caused massive damage. So, if Kokuichi can stop Mahito, he definitely has to improve. Well, shockingly, you may not have noticed, but even as early as chapter 21, Mahito had the mindset of Sukuna, where he stated, don't limit yourself. If you're hungry, then eat. If you hate, then kill. Do whatever you want. This is word for word, bar for bar, what Sukuna stated in chapter 238. Due to this mindset, it allowed Mahito to evolve just like Kenjaku planned. After witnessing what Gojo had done and experiencing the use of Black Flash, he unlocked a new layer of his powers that allowed him to activate a domain of 0.2 seconds whilst also using his curse technique in a single step. He achieved this by combining the process of realizing his innate domain and activating his curse technique into one quick action. Hell, even Sukuna was impressed by his evolution, which reinforces the parallels between them. Sukuna modified his body all for the sake of Jujutsu. Kashimo used his X-ray glazed Kashimo using his X-ray glazed the dude, recognizing the king as immaculate beauty and had succeeded in his self-embodiment of perfection. Now, does that name ring a bell? Well, it's exactly what Mahito's domain is called. Thus, he demonstrated this against Todo by successfully using idol transfiguration on him without physical contact, even though Todo stopped the technique from spreading by cutting off his own transfigured hand. But the brief duration of the domain expansion allowed Mahito to avoid being attacked by Sukuna despite touching his soul. This is way more OP than you think. Remember, since his domain is being compared to Unlimited Void, a 0.1 second difference allowed Gojo to absolutely destroy Sukuna and do significant damage. So since Mahito can now activate his technique way faster and easier, and he did evolve that increased his power by 200%, realistically, all he would need to do is cast his domain to disfigure your entire body multiple times before you counter, making it instant death. No reverse curse technique or healing brain damage bullshit is gonna save you from your soul being absolutely finished. All of this makes Mahito's domain S tier, coming to the one man who surprised everyone with his potential and was acknowledged by the king himself, Higuruma. In a matter of 2 months, the lawyer had the ability to rival Satoru freaking Gojo himself, including unlocking reverse curse technique on the spot. However, what truly makes Higuruma OP as hell is his insane domain expansion, Deadly Sentencing. It resembles a small courtroom where the user and their target stand as prosecutor and defendant, but it doesn't feature a guaranteed attack. Instead, it forces those inside to follow the user's curse technique rules. In fact, the domain isn't designed to be lethal and includes a binding vow requiring the user to explain all the rules. The first thing that makes this different is that violence is prohibited for both sides, and the case begins immediately upon activation. A Shikigami called Judge Man announces all the charges against the defendant, which are real crimes they may or may not have committed. But the catch here is that Judge Man automatically knows everything about everyone inside the domain. But Higuruma has no clue of this information. Even the choice of crime isn't known to him before the domain acts on it. After the accusation is reviewed, the defendant is given one chance to defend their case. They can choose to remain silent, admit guilt, or deny the accusation. They can even lie, but their goal is to convince the judge of their innocence beyond any doubt. The prosecutor also gets only one chance to respond, using evidence provided in a sealed envelope, which may not always be true. In the end, the Shikigami will determine the defendant's guilt or innocence. If found guilty, the punishment varies based on the severity of the crime, with one common punishment being the confiscation of their ability to use curse techniques. Now, if you forgot, in chapter 166, we learned that the harshest sentence Higuruma's domain can impose is the death penalty, in addition to confiscation. In this scenario, Higuruma receives the executioner's blade, which can instantly kill anyone with a single strike. You must be wondering, that is literally the most unavoidable domain, but yeah, that's not true. The rules say that you can lie, and if the proof can't really prove your crime, you're free to go, making it a waste of Higuruma's curse energy. The second downside was explained to us by Higuruma himself in chapter 244. When the sorcerers were planning to make Sukuna go through a trial, Higuruma states that the crimes involving Sukuna's finger can't be charged against him. Moreover, his attitude and intention mean he won't get a rehabilitation sentence, etc, etc. A lot of yapping going on. Now let me put this in easy words with Sukuna's example. If Sukuna were genuinely taken to court for a regular trial, he would certainly get the death penalty. However, since Judge Man randomly picks any offense, it is possible that Sukuna could be charged with something minor, like damage to public property, instead of mass murder. For example, Yuji was first charged with illegal gambling, going to a pachinko rather than Sukuna's actions at Shibuya. Hence, the chance of a major sentence is low, because Judge Man might focus on minor offenses like damaged clothes, even if someone has committed murder, for frick's sake. Additionally, due to the statute of limitations, any crimes committed before 1985 shouldn't even be judged. Higuruma is even unsure about that, if modern law can apply to someone like Sukuna. This poses major drawbacks for our team and his domain expansion, as it raises the question of whether Sukuna can even be judged by human laws at all, given that he is called the King of Curses and doesn't even see himself as either curse or human. This means that there are tons and tons and tons of uncertainty involved in using deadly sentencing. But perhaps the worst part is that if Higuruma's opponent has a cursed tool or weapon, it will be confiscated instead of their technique. Yep, the best way to avoid consequences in this domain is through such an object. Since Sukuna got the Vajra cursed tool in his possession in chapter 237, it was taken away instead of shrine according to the domain rule, and he escaped unharmed. And okay, let's say you get guilty. He gets the executioner blade, then he has to use his speed and whatever else to actually land it to get you killed. It's worse than Mahito's Idol Transfiguration, worse than Unlimited Void, worse than Yuji's technique domain. Let's just be honest. That's like taking away a murderer's knife instead of locking up the criminal for a homicide. So this makes it a huge reason why Higuruma's domain lands in B tier and arguably maybe even C. Next up, we have a sorcerer who is highly underestimated, Yuzu. When she expands threefold suffering, it manifests as mostly empty space filled with oversized organic structures that resembles the brains and nerve cords of insects. The sure-hit effect of her domain applies to the constructed items she creates. That's right, anything she makes through her technique has a guaranteed attack, which is insane given how she hit a wall in the early days with this technique. Creating something from nothing uses a lot of curse energy, making it energy inefficient compared to others. She saw a solution to her weakness in insects. Yozu deemed an insect's shell as the ultimate armor and the ideal subject for construction. So having constructed several kinds of combat equipment, Yozu used her experience to develop a liquid metal as her primary weapon. The liquid metal has changeable volume with stable physical properties due to semi-autonomous curse energy manipulating it. Now you're probably confused, what the hell does that even mean? Well, basically what I'm trying to say is she grew her ability to a huge extent, telling us that she is not weak by any means. Even in chapter 218, it clearly states that Yozu did not lack any expertise or power compared to the sorcerers of the Heian era, which was the prime of Jujutsu. The evidence for this is pretty clear, because in chapter 172, Megami used the same strategy Sukuna accomplished against Yozu. Reggie had an elephant thrown at him weighed around 3 to 6 tons, which fractured his bones. But when you compare it to Yozu, tanking an elephant amplified by Sukuna's curse energy, being around 3 times bigger, it was no problem. This led to Yozu expanding her domain and wanting to do a barrier battle with the king. Now, unlike that loser Jogo, you guys like to call him that, he didn't want to do a domain battle. Yozu constructs her most powerful weapon, True Sphere. This sphere can create infinite pressure since it doesn't have a contact area. It's a mass that you can't touch and will obliterate you. Now, let me bring my degree in anime bullshit science to prove why this is more powerful than you think. A perfect circle, as seen in chapter 219, is a mathematical concept that doesn't exist in real life, meaning Yozu achieved the impossible. A perfect circle means any force applied by the circle will result in infinite pressure, which no living being can take and will simply disappear from existence. So, no sorcerers in reality could even survive this. Its sure hit is a guaranteed kill no matter what. In fact, Yoruzu's perfect sphere is quite similar to Hollow Purple, which is another imaginary concept, making it one of the most powerful in the series. The only unfortunate thing for her was the person she was facing. Sukuna had immense battle experience and claimed that techniques like hers always tend to be the same and one-trick ponies. So, remember when Yuta stated even the king would be surprised by a power he hasn't seen before? Unfortunately, construction was nothing new, and he adapted to it whilst using Mahoraga to his advantage. However, the ability to imbue sure hit to any created object as well as using True Sphere in this domain makes it a solid A tier. Talking about absolutely unhinged people, we have to mention the guy's name that I can't pronounce and you guys make fun out of me. Haki. Haki? How did I say it right this time? Give me a round of applause. Come on now. So, Haki...
This guy is f***ing stupid!
So, Hikari is this delinquent student of Jujutsu High, even though his reputation is
It's the biggest piece of dog shit.
Hikari's domain expansion is absolutely astonishing because it quite simply makes him near invincible. It's so broken that it becomes evident why Yuta considers him to be stronger when he is fired up. But how does it work? Well, Idle Death Gamble is themed around risk. This is literally the embodiment of what sorcery is all about. For example, unlike other domains, Hikari's guaranteed hit is harmless, as the moment his opponents enter the domain, they don't get blasted with some sort of offensive damage. Rather, they instantly get flooded with information on how the game works. In turn, within just 0.2 seconds the game starts, making it very effective in a clash of domains. You are then forced to play by the rules, which is quite similar to Higuruma. But Hikari's goal is to go through different scenarios and stages to hit jackpot, similar to a pachinko lottery machine. With a jackpot, the domain finally ends, and the song Admiring You plays out loud. Within that duration of 4 minutes and 11 seconds, Hikari receives unlimited curse energy. This allows him to infuse every attack with pure pure untapped energy. Remember how Yuta showcased this power against Yuji's raw strength just by using his large pool of cursed energy? Well, this is similar to that, and it's insane because his cursed energy surpasses even that. Kashimo even confirmed that due to unlimited energy, his speed, power, and everything else keeps increasing the more jackpots he hits with consecutive domain expansions. Also, due to the influx of overwhelming power, Hakari's body subconsciously creates positive energy that instantaneously heals him, making him invincible. In his fight against Kashimo, he was brushing off the electricity-based attacks, and when his left arm had disintegrated, Hakari just rejuvenated it, landing a surprise attack. Kashimo tried frying his brain, even poisoning the dude, but nothing worked. This healing speed is faster than any other sorcerer using reverse curse technique, where Urame stated it surpasses both Sukuna and Gojo. So with zero fear of death, Hakari can go beyond 100% and not worry about his opponent's attacks and damage output. But if somehow you survive fighting this immortal demon with unlimited power, then you would have to replay the whole situation again. As once this unkillable duration ends, his curse energy and technique replenishes, allowing him to initiate another domain expansion. So unlike Gojo, who was limited to 5 times in a row, Hakari is even better than the likes of him and Sukuna, who did 7 in total. Mind you, they had to resort to frying their brains or doing multiple binding vows. In fact, Hakari was fighting Urame for 30 minutes, which means he did exactly that by stalling them. Since the timer is 4 minutes or so, he most likely did domain expansion jackpot 7 times in a row. Otherwise, he would have died instantly against her, as he got outplayed within the first few chapters of them fighting. Though there is only a 1 in 239 chance of doing so, in his own words, on the first activation of consecutive expansions, the probability is over 20%, along with boasting that he never needed more than 30 spins to hit it. Every time he hits a jackpot, the probability of hitting another one actually increases. The only major weakness is that inside his domain, Hakari is not invincible, as shown against Kashimo, who easily outdueled him. But he can use his consecutive effect indicator to replay brutal exchanges and undo any damage he takes. This is how he survives until he can hit jackpot, which is exactly what he does. Hakari employs a perfect strategy of offensive and defensive to always win his fight. Though Kashimo didn't use his ultimate technique, he accepted the loss. Remember, this farmer was supposed to be the strongest of his time. His domain also went toe-to-toe with Sukuna's lifelong attendant Urame, who recognized the dude as a monster akin to the people of the Heian era. However, in terms of ranking, this domain doesn't quite make it S tier, rather falling short into A, or some of you in the comments will say B. This domain's short hit attack doesn't end the fight instantly like some of the others, and it allows Hakari's opponents to fight him directly before a jackpot is even landed. So if he slips even once, he loses. Speaking of falling short, it's time to mention the most misogynistic sorcerer of the Jujutsu world, Naoya. Yeah, bro went through evolutions like a Pokemon to achieve his final form. He achieved a domain called Time Cell Moon Palace, which creates a black empty area with only a few floating particles and the main stage. Naoya expanded his domain for the first time when pushed to his limits as a vengeful cursed spirit during a battle against Maki, Daido, and Mio. He trapped Daido and Mio inside the domain, injecting 2 lines of film into both of their necks. Initially, nothing seemed to happen, leading the 2 fighters to assume it was a misfire and they attempt to attack. However, as they were unable to obey the 24 FPS rule based on Naoya's projection curse technique, Daido and Mio suffered bleeding injuries all over their body. This resulted in Mio collapsing and Daido attempting to slash with the split soul katana only to have his hand severed. The domain enhances the precision of his projection technique technique by targeting individual cells, freezing it, disrupting the opponent's body completely. This instantly immobilizes the target, and if they force a movement, it can even result in a body part completely being removed. It would be impossible for every cell in the body to adhere to the rule, even for Gojo and Sukuna. The adult human body is freaking estimated to contain around, how many you think? 1 million? 1 billion? No, bruh! 30 trillion cells, fam. This domain can be compared to a lesser version of Mahito's idol transfiguration. It's deadly and wins the fight instantly, but of course, you would have to be touched to get the 24 FPS rule, unlike Mahito. And then, Naoya would actually have to beat you down at Mark 3 repeatedly since you can't move. However, just like most of the other domains, it can still be countered with simple domain or even amplification. And unlike Sukuna's shrine, where slashes are floating everywhere, Naoya's domain relies on targeting, which makes it go flush right down the toilet if you have any anti-domain technique. Because if it misses, it's pretty much game over, as the 24 FPS film won't hit you with the rule. Maki perfectly illustrated this, as domains cannot recognize her without any curse energy, and thus cannot target her. This allowed her to move freely and ultimately kill Naoya by attacking him from behind. But for Sukuna, when she was in that situation, Maki was actually gonna die, and she needed Miwa's help. Therefore, if a sorcerer had an anti-domain ability, as I said, if they outpace him, which most can do by now, they'd win. So I'm placing this domain in B tier. But speaking of which, let's meet our one and only potential man, Megami. Megami first summoned Chimera Shadow Garden in battle by envisioning himself surpassing his limits. However, this activation nearly depleted all of his curse energy, leading to physical damage. Moreover, adding to his lack of experience resulted in an incomplete domain, lacking a complete barrier or a sure hit effect. Nonetheless, the domain significantly boosted 10 shadows beyond its usual capabilities. It granted the ability to manifest multiple Shikigami, as well as advanced manipulation of all available shadows. Keep in mind, each one of these creatures come with its own multiple benefits and powers that are now amplified. Within the domain, the shadowy floor can transform into black toads that seize Megami's target and increase his mobility. For example, taking Reggie out of his hollow wicker basket. Additionally, multiple versions of his Shikigami, such as Niue, can be generated, flying around and launching rapid attacks at the opponent. However, Megami's mastery of shadow manipulation actually greatly improved, even learning how to create a double and move in between other people's shadows like he did against Reggie. Furthermore, to defeat the Finger Bearer, Megami utilized his enhanced 10 shadows technique to conceal himself in the curse's shadow alongside Divine Dog Totality. During the Shibuya incident, Megami used his domain to infiltrate Dagon's barrier. He managed to create an exit for his allies, as well as enable Maki to access the weapon cache hidden within his shadows. But in the culling game, Megami understood that using Chimera Shadow Garden against two opponents would not work. This is because his domain was still incomplete and lacked the ability to trap the opponents effectively. Instead, Megami managed to separate Reggie from his partner and lure him into a gymnasium which was suitable. Despite his limited proficiency in barrier techniques, Megami forcibly converted the gymnasium into one, trapping Reggie inside, and it raised the potential of the 10 shadows technique to 120%. On top of that, anyone standing in the shadow will have to reinforce their feet with curse energy or risk falling into the abyss. Within the liquid-like shadows, there is no resistance or oxygen, so if you drop into it, you will fall indefinitely, which is exactly what occurred to Reggie. However, there is a major condition of Chimera Shadow Garden that can work against the sorcerer. Whilst Megami can store items in his shadow, he must bear their weight. Reggie capitalized on this by summoning 3 cars and dropping them into the domain. This move immediately immobilized Megami with immense pressure and destroyed his clones. But Megami is not done. He turned the tables by using the shadows above Reggie to drop Maximum Elephant on top of him, transforming their battle into a test of endurance. In fact, Reggie realized that Megami wasn't dispelling his domain because anything within the shadows could be trapped inside after its disappearance. This means that anyone who is inside the domain would be trapped in the shadows if Megami died in battle. It's a perfect suicide attack. This dude for real has some of the most self-destructive weapons in his arsenal. No wonder the 10 Shadows user died to 6 Eyes Limitless users 400 years ago, you know what I'm saying?
Why are you disrespecting me, bro? My mistake, original gangster.
Well, at any rate, Megami was able to defeat Reggie, but he took severe damage himself because of his poorly constructed domain expansion. All in all, the final form of his domain would be in S tier, especially since Sukuna displayed what its full power looks like, and we would have to include Mahoraga, who would adapt to anything you do and was even capable of hurting Satoru Gojo. Mahoraga takes up a lot of curse energy, but if Megami has enough, we can imagine him summoning more than one Mahoraga in his domain. However, that's potential, man, not Megami, whose incomplete Chimera Shadow sits in B tier. But the next domain, unlike Megami, is the most experienced sorcerer in history, none other than Kenjaku's Womb Profusion. Now, this name is as gross as his activities, and it suits the Kenjutsu really well. However, this domain actually belonged to none other than Suguru Geto. When Yuta took over Gojo's body, he used Unlimited Void and cannot access mutual love any longer. Kenjaku mastered Geto's curse manipulation and displayed its full power using his expertise. This made it an open barrier type domain, akin to divinity, just like Sukuna, and has a tower of grossly merged cursed spirit faces. The only real counter the manga has displayed against open domains was through Gojo, which Yuta also copied against Sukuna. Gojo created a small basketball-sized domain because he could strengthen it from the outside, which would allow his timer to last 3 minutes before Sukuna's slashes would destroy his barrier. In other words, to face Kenjaku, you would have to find the weak point of open domains. However, most sorcerers won't be able to do this, so Kenjaku's open domain is looking to be quite powerful. In a domain battle, Kenjaku would be able to destroy his opponent's domain barrier to make his sure hit effective and essentially kill them, as they would have curse technique burnout, and not everyone is Gojo who can replenish it by restoring their brain's function after it's been fried. Plus, this is literally the reason given in chapter 206 why Yuki shouldn't enter a domain battle with Kenjaku, because her barrier would be erased before his. That's why she had to rely on Master Tengen, where the old granny states Kenjaku can match her, and his simple domain isn't even on the same level of other sorcerers because it's too strong. As a result, Kenjaku capitalized on Yuki's hesitation and grabbed the chance to cast it first. This barrier was so powerful that it quickly stripped Yuki's simple domain down to nothing, which proves that its output being top tier. He even gaslights her, stating, "What the hell were you thinking?
You really thought that would work?"
Even Tengen, the best barrier user amongst all Jujutsu sorcerers in history, struggled to target and dismantle Kenjaku's Womb Profusion because it lacked the well-defined outer shell of a closed barrier, proving even further the divinity of open domains. Kenjaku even admitted in chapter 205 that his technique isn't a good matchup against Yuki because she ignores concepts of Star Rage. Nothing but his high-grade spirits would be usable. However, even with this disadvantage, his domain was so strong that she lost. The sure hit defeated her instantly, with Tengen saving her life. We can say that this domain is easily in A tier, given that the curse manipulation technique can still be utilized, with many special grades within the technique itself that he has consumed, and they have their own domain expansions too, as we have seen with the smallpox deity. So yeah, It's OP. Now remember how Nanami always wanted to retire in Malaysia? Well, he got a taste of it in Shibuya itself, thanks to the next domain on the list. Doon is the cursed spirit that represents the ocean, which is why it resembles a beach, but before it had even turned into a special grade curse, Doon demonstrated this ability in his curse room form. The first instance was inside an apartment where the curses gathered for planning and healing, such as Jogo after getting his ass beat up by Gojo. After evolving into a fully developed cursed spirit in Shibuya, Doon expanded his domain to battle Nanami, Maki, and Aobito. He used his Shikigami inside the domain to attack and easily overpower all these grade 1 sorcerers, which tells us a lot about its strength. The domain's sure hit attack are fish-like Shikigami that automatically strike their target. From the opponent's perspective, the fish materialize instantaneously, making them nearly impossible to block. This is because the Shikigami don't exist until the precise moment they make contact, instantly tearing into the flesh of their target. Hence, it could damage the sorcerer severely until Megami came to the rescue, breaking into the shell from the outside. He disrupted the battle by expanding his own domain, initiating a tug of war that neutralized Dogon's powerful attacks. Moreover, Toji's resurrection entered the domain through the opening created by Megami and destroyed Dogon to kill him, which ended his domain and life. These two instances show that Dogon's domain is not effective against high-level domains and even sorcerers, since other massive domains would instantly overtake him, and sorcerers with good defensive abilities, such as simple domain, that would just make this useless, as you can just destroy the Shikigami as they come to you, just like Naobito did with a lesser technique, Falling Blossom Emotion. They are not even instant death, as they are not powerful enough to even one-shot a grade 1 like Nanami. And if Megami can do a tug of war and he's a suicidal guy and isn't that strong, freaking heck, Nanami against Mahito said he was pretty much dead, that required Yuji to save him, but with Dogon, he could at least have a fighting chance. Hence, Dogon is C tier. Now, another domain that seems lackluster is Jogo's Coffin of the Iron Mountain. It is inside a volcano that produces heat so great that the average Jujutsu sorcerer would combust upon entering the domain, which, by the way, a average sorcerer is grade 3 or lower. By the end of the manga, that doesn't seem impressive enough. However, the guaranteed hit includes Jogo manipulating molten rock, fire, and even his ember insects from the surroundings to deliver an attack that has a guaranteed hit. But he was the biggest loser idiot to use it against the one and only Satoru freaking Gojo. This was an attempt to overcome Infinity. Gojo countered Jogo's attack by deflecting the guaranteed hit and used his own domain. Unlimited Void was of course the more refined of the two and destroyed him in an instant. This domain clash caused serious self-esteem issues for Jogo because he couldn't even summon his domain in the battle against Sukuna at 15 fingers, fearing that Malevolent Shrine would overpower it. And he isn't wrong, he would have lost. Now, Jogo only looks weak because he went up against literally the two strongest characters in the verse. Jogo's maximum technique generates a meteor that could hurl at his target and could be the sure hit effect in his domain too, right? And as we saw in Shibuya, the impact causes immense destruction, enough to decimate the entire area. Even Sukuna admitted he wouldn't have come out unscathed if maximum meteor had hit him. And on top of that, throughout all the opponents that Sukuna has faced over 1,000 years, Jogo has stood out to him as one of the stronger ones, a massive endorsement of his overall power. Nanami and Naoya admitted he was in a different league and the strongest amongst the disaster curses before Mahito evolved. So generally speaking, at 8 Sukuna fingers of power, he would be able to defeat most of the characters before the time skip that occurred in chapter 222. However, after their methods of training to fight Sukuna, his domain expansion would require much more time against their refined simple domains, and he would lose in a barrier battle to, let's say, Yuta, Hakairi, Yuji, and Maki would make him mince meat since his attacks are too slow. So I'm putting Jogo at B, as he would beat Megami and Dogon in a domain battle, but the others in this tier seem to be on a equal footing. A tier and S tier would demolish him, seeing as though Jogo saw Mahito as their leader, as well as he didn't evolve like him, which was expected of Jogo, but he had a loser's mentality. Now, he shouldn't cry and be sad like he did because he's not at rock bottom. The domain of this cursed spirit actually is, and that's smallpox deity. What kind of deity is this week? You know what I'm saying?
That is a 2-pack of ass.
Well, he was one of the registered special grade cursed spirits. Kenjaku assured Meimei its power was the utmost quality among his collection. He used it as a benchmark to test the grade 1 sorcerer's abilities to judge if she was worthy to face him. But Meimei and Ui overcame it. This domain named Graveyard traps an opponent inside as soon as it is summoned. The Graveyard is based on the fact that the cursed spirit represents a disease that kills people. However, this domain only works on one person at a time and automatically chooses the one with more curse energy, which is why Meimei was the first choice. Now, whilst active, the smallpox deity's domain captures the target inside a coffin, which is then buried underground. Moreover, a huge boulder is placed on top of the coffin as the cursed spirit begins a countdown from 3 to 1. If Meimei had failed to escape the coffin before the countdown ended, she would have contracted smallpox and ultimately died. But she could easily break apart the boulder and escape. She came up with the plan that Ui would use simple domain to defend himself, while she just used bird strike to end the curse. It was a successful plan and showed that this domain is nothing more than a party trick, especially because there are no refinements to it. Hence, anyone with enough power, a domain expansion, or simple domain would overcome it easily, making Graveyard a D-tier domain. So that's my list completed. Let me know yours in the comment section below. And to enjoy more peak fiction, watch this video on your screen right now.